Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Decipher You. We're so excited to start on batch 5 this evening. My name is Elizabeth Voss. I'm editor-in-chief of Disobedient Media, and I'm with Suzie Dawson, journalist, activist, and leader of the Internet Party of New Zealand. Sorry, I've had a long day of reading. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for waiting. And here's Suzie. I think, yeah, there you go. Playback's done.
Oh, hey, everyone, how are you? I hope you can hear us all right. They're clapping, so I take that as a good sign.
Yeah, I'm going to mangle my words really badly this evening, I can tell. It's
all right. I am, to be honest with you, really overtired as well, just getting over the flu, and I've been working a ridiculous amount. I know Elizabeth has too, but I've been working a ridiculous amount of hours in the last week, so we will do our best anyway. So I've got here 294 files from batch 5 of the Snowden docs that we are going to work through tonight. And hi, everyone. I can see everyone saying hello to us. That's really cool. Thank you for waiting. Yes, fashionably late again. I know, I'm really sorry. There is a bit of a lack of local tech staff on the ground here for me. So I'm having to set up my kitchen office every time that we do a stream from scratch. But we made it, we're here, and it seems to be working. So we'll just go ahead and get into it.
Yeah, and I also want to add that I have a new mic. So if I'm too loud or if I'm too quiet, let me know and I'll mess with the settings on it. And also just, hi, I'm so glad we're here. It's been a long day for everybody, and I'm really looking forward to what we'll find in these documents tonight. I'm hoping batch 5 will be even more interesting than batch 4.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to share screen and let's get started. If you guys can tweet out and tell people we're live, that would be really, really helpful, because as usual, I've not got to do a lot of promo for this. So thank you in advance for helping us to do that. Okay, so I'll open the first 5 files and we'll start going through them. Where did the SID staff go? From SIGINT Communications. Most of us have relocated, or we are about to. There's people you're seeing in the hallways laden down with boxes, plants, and other paraphernalia. Could be members of the staff. Many elements have moved to new spaces. Okay, so really they're just literally relocating offices. Yeah, okay. I think we can skip that. It doesn't seem to be significant at all. Next document, SROB plans the future of SIGINT. This sounds more interesting.
Ooh, definitely.
From SIGINT requirements. It comes as no surprise that the SIGINT enterprise must constantly acquire new capabilities in order to produce quality intelligence for its customers. We are always recognizing new technologies, new equipment, and new skills that we will need now and in the future. The SIGINT director is responsible for making sure that all of these related requirements are accounted for, prioritized, and included in the agency's overall acquisition process. It is the role of the Requirements Oversight Board to help them do it. They are headed by SIGINT Director MG Quirk and made up of permanent and associate members. The board acts as an integrator, providing MG Quirk with a unified view. Sorry, just moving my Zoom out of the way. Unified view of all SIGINT capability requirements, and provides a senior forum for the discussion of the future of the discipline through the participation of the joint staff and other members of the intelligence community. The Requirements Board allows SID to form partnerships and share information regarding our collective visions of the future of SIGINT. It also serves as the formal body that validates and/or certifies capability documents for release to the corporate review group, the director of the NSA's body that validates and submits capability documents for joint and community review. The only thing I'd point out there is that it appears that once again they are setting their own, was it the previous, where did they say their vision?
Yeah.
They're talking about they're generating their vision for the future of the agency from within the agency.
Exactly. Yeah.
That for me is significant, because that vision is supposed to come from externally, in my opinion,
Yeah, exactly.
not from
Definitely.
within the organization.
And that definitely goes along with that other finding that we had where we talked about the same thing, for sure.
Yeah. As DoD and the intelligence community move to new and updated processes, the requirements board has been quick to react and remain consistent with new policy guidelines for major acquisition programs, which is their purchasing of things. The requirements board secretariat, SIGINT requirements, sends requirements board members draft versions of the documents to be discussed at least 1 week prior to meeting. Final discussion of issues occurs at the board meeting, with 1 capstone requirements document completed, 6 operational requirements documents in final review, and more capability development documents awaiting review. The requirements board has been busy and looks to remain engaged with decisions affecting the future of SIGINT enterprise. CRD captures the overarching requirements for a mission area that forms a family of systems or a system of systems. ORD is a formatted document containing operational performance requirements for a single proposed concept or system. And CDD is a document that captures the information necessary to develop a proposed program. The CDD outlines an affordable increment of a useful, logistically supportable, and technically mature capability. So this is all just what I would call in the software realm process documentation.
Definitely.
Which in of itself is not significant unless we can actually see what is in these. But this is all very standard practice, standard process. So I'm going to leave that because I don't see anything in there that we'd report on separately. Okay, launch of SIDT 2.0 webpage, transformation 2.0 webpage. Today, the new webpage is being launched. The purpose of this webpage is to give the SID population a chance to weigh in on the T2.0 initiative. To get to the page, type blah, blah, blah. In 5 papers that outline the vision, Transformation 2.0, cryptology as a team sport, teaming up between the Signals Intelligence Directorate and Information Assurance Directorate, teaming the entire enterprise, no more them and us, teaming with our intelligence and information assurance partners, teaming, look at that, teaming with our clients. It's not about us, it's about the US. Now, let's just have a little look at who can see this.
And then the next line mentions that General Hayden...
Eyes document.
Then it mentions General Hayden too, which is just typical. Sorry.
General Hayden has given us the what. As members of SID, we are now charged with developing the how that will make the vision a reality. You can find these documents as well as other pertinent information, including the new concept of operations under resource documents on the SID T2 webpage. Unique features of the SID T2 webpage are the discussion board and the opinion papers portions. The discussion board enables non-real-time chat, giving SIGINTers around the world an opportunity to have a conversation about the concept. Sorry, I'm just going to cough. The opinion papers section is a place to post white papers, think pieces, or the like that contain a more in-depth expression of your thoughts and ideas on the subject of information sharing. Don't miss this chance to let your ideas and thoughts be known. Okay. So this is like very, again, propagandistic. Like this, it's not about us, it's about the US. Because if that was the case, then they would be loyal to their mandate and to the charter under which they operate, and they would respect the oversight committees and oversight procedures.
You know what's interesting though about the charter is when I was looking that up, because when you said that about the other document that we analyzed, that where they said basically that they run themselves, and you were saying that's against the charter, I looked it up, and their charter, unlike the CIA, was it wasn't, and their charter basically did give them unlimited. From what I was understanding of it, is their charter didn't have the types of checks and balances that you would expect. So
Do you know the date on? I'd actually really like, and it would be useful for the series, for us to review the NSA Charter. Do you have a link to the document?
I don't. I actually only have a link to an Atlantic article which discusses the 1982 article by an author that then discusses the charter. It's not like when they created it, it was not public. It was back in the there is no agency.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. My understanding is that NSA didn't have a charter or a public charter when it was formed, which was in the 20s or something, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
It was really, really far back. But I think eventually they did have a charter.
Yeah. I'm looking at I've got a link. I'm just not sure if I trust it. It says the original charter of the National Security Agency. And I mean, we could go through it. I'll send it to you, and I'll throw it into YouTube's chat. So people, and also I'm aware that for some reason my lighting is really yellow this evening. I have no idea why. I haven't changed anything. So just is what it is, I guess. But that's the first thing that comes up when I looked for the NSA's charter.
So this James Bamford that they're quoting at the top of the link that you've just given me, which is definitely a credible source. He's saying that it was started in the 50s and that it was super secret.
Yep.
That kind of makes sense because I think Five Eyes Agreement was something like 1949. There was an agency that preceded the NSA. I can't remember the name of it off my head. I've reported on it previously, which was, I'm pretty sure, established sometime in the 20s. And then it morphed into the NSA.
That would be like how the OSS sort of morphed over into the CIA.
So what is being quoted here is not a charter, it's a memorandum. A memorandum for the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense. I'm just going to screen share for you guys so you can see what I'm looking at.
Also, I'm trying to post an Atlantic article that discusses it. I'm not modded. I don't have a wrench on because I'm on Disobedient Media's account on YouTube because I'm also uploading a video there. But anyway, but the Atlantic article talks about the secret story of how the NSA began, and that's the Atlantic's article is one of the ones that I quoted when I did my last post on our major finding on this, and it basically cites this article from 1982, which describes how amazing and huge and powerful the NSA is. So let me see.
Okay, the communications intelligence activities of the United States are a national responsibility. October 24th, 1952. To the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense. They must be so organized and managed as to exploit to the maximum the available resources in all participating departments and agencies, and to satisfy the legitimate intelligence requirements of all such departments and agencies. I therefore designate the Secretaries of State and Defense as a special committee of the National Security Council for comment, which committee shall, with the assistance of the Director of Central Intelligence, establish policies governing common activities, and keep me advised of such policies through the Executive Secretary of the National Security Council. Who is writing this? Is this from Truman?
Yeah. I believe so.
Harry S. Truman. Okay, it's from Truman. So at that time, Truman was forming a committee, an oversight committee of the Director of the CIA, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense. And they are to report through the Executive Secretary of the National Security Council. I further designate the Department of Defense as executive agent of the government for the production of this information. They direct the special, which is why NSA is a component of DOD. I direct a special committee to prepare and issue directives which shall include the provisions set forth below and other provisions as the special committee may deem to be necessary. A directive to the United States Communication Intelligence Board. This directive will replace the National Security Council Intelligence Directive number 9 and shall prescribe USCIB's new composition, responsibilities and procedures in the comment fields. This directive shall include the following provisions. You know what I find really interesting here? I bet you if I go like this.
Yeah, well, the really, really crazy statement.
See this?
Oh, go ahead.
I've just Control F'd the word corporate and I'm pressing enter, and there's absolutely no returns.
Jumping to the Atlantic article for 1 second, this is what I found really, really noteworthy in that article, that it said, no law has ever been enacted prohibiting the NSA from engaging in any activity. There are only laws to prohibit the release of information about the agency. No statute establishes the NSA, former Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Frank Church reported, or defines the permissible scope of its responsibilities. Isn't that insane?
That's really, it's interesting. It's also insane. Yes, I agree. So I've just done a quick search on this document which sets out their responsibilities and their it really, I mean, this is as close to a charter as we're going to get at this point. Yeah. It looks like it. I've just searched on the word corporate and the word corporation and the word business and the word economic and the word economy, because these are words that we find all of the way through the NSA's documents. And there are no results at all in this document for those words, except the word economy appears in a different context, not referring to the economy of the United States, but that it's related to the resources that they use. So that tells me that the NSA in its present form, in its corporate form, as acting as a business, is a long way from the NSA that was originally dreamed up. And possibly that applies to the whole of government. The whole of government now uses a corporate approach and has corporations, subsidiary corporations and whatnot. And is economically focused, whereas I don't think this is going to be economically focused in this document, because there would be more returns for the keywords otherwise. But I want to read through this because I think this is a very important foundational information for what we're doing. So I'm going to soldier on and go through it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's an important context for sure.
Okay, so they shall prescribe. This director will replace the National Security Council Intelligence Directive number 9 and shall prescribe UCSCIB's new composition responsibilities and procedures in the comment fields. So I just want to write. So this is the United States Communication Intelligence Board. So what he is doing in this document is actually not setting out what the NSA does. Here he does, and point down here he does. Okay, so first he talks about what the board has to do. So the board should be composed of the following members: Director of Central Intelligence, representatives of the Secretary of State and Defense, and the Director of the FBI, Director of the National Security Agency, and the director, representative of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the CIA. So I'm pretty sure that that stands to this day, but it's not the Senate Intelligence Committee, and it's not the Congressional Intelligence Committee or Oversight Board. Those are separate entities. The board shall have a staff headed by an executive secretary who should be appointed by the chairman with the approval of the majority of the board. It shall be the duty of the board to advise and make recommendations to the Secretary of Defense in accordance with the following procedure with respect to any matter relating to communications intelligence which falls within the jurisdiction of the Director of the NSA. The board shall reach its decision by majority vote. Each member of the board shall have 1 vote except the representatives of the Secretary of State and the CIA, who shall each have 2 votes.
Wow, interesting.
Secretary of State and CIA having 2 votes makes it 4 out of 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. So 12. That can't be right. Oh, I guess the executive assistant doesn't get a vote, so it's 11. 9 members and 11 total votes. So if state and CIA are 4 votes out of 11, then they only need 2 of these guys, 2 of these guys to agree with them.
Incredible.
So in theory, I mean, I'm sure in practice there isn't much dissent at all because they're all in bed with each other. But in theory, the Air Force, Navy, Army, and FBI could disagree, but the NSA, DOD, state, and CIA would be enough to force through the vote anyway, without the other forces agreeing. That's very interesting. This is also very interesting because of the, I'm just going to come out of share for a sec, the nature of the relationship between state and CIA. Yeah. So this is something that, I mean, this ties into the whole Clinton CIA stuff that's been going on for years now. Definitely. Many people wondered, why was Hillary Clinton able to have such a say in Libya and in where there are wars and where there is everything else? This shows that the Secretary of State is embedded in the intelligence services in a massive way, so much so that she even had a double vote on the intelligence board.
Absolutely insane. Nuts.
Have you guys got the link to what I'm looking at right now? I can see people asking for it.
I know I threw it in chat earlier. If it went through, I can grab it again. 1 second. Yeah. Oh, wow. For some reason, I know that, okay, literally, I was given a wrench 5 minutes ago. I just tried to add the link again and, oh, nope. I've got a wrench and it still won't let me. No, I know. I know. Like, what I'm looking at is my name, Disobedient Media's account with a wrench, but it's unable to post that link. It won't let me.
It's probably a YouTube thing, to be honest. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Let's keep going through this. In terms of notes for the Pirate Pad, I'd definitely make a note that the Secretary of State sits on the Communications Intelligence Board and has 2 votes, as well as the CIA having 2 votes.
Yeah.
I think that demonstration of a relationship between Secretary of State and Central Intelligence Agency is significant.
Definitely, I agree. And it's definitely significant, especially if we are putting it into, like combining it with some of the other findings that we've made. Very, very helpful in showing the connections.
Okay. Where did we get up to? 2 votes. The Director of Central Intelligence as chairman will have no vote. Oh, I'm sorry. The CIA has no vote. Well, then how does the Central Intelligence Agency have 2 votes? Each member of the board shall have 1 vote, except the representatives of. Right. So that's
director
doesn't. Yeah, it's the representatives of. So the representative of the CIA has 2 votes, but the director of the CIA technically has no vote, because they're the president of the board.
Wow.
Well, technically the chairman of the board is not much difference. In the event that the board votes and reaches a decision, any dissenting member of the board may appeal the decision within 7 days of the special committee. In the event that the board votes but fails to reach a decision, any member of the board may appeal within 7 days to the special committee. In either event, the special committee shall review the matter and its determination thereon shall be final. Okay, so the board shall be reconstituted as a body acting for and under the special committee. The Secretaries of State and Defence are the special committee. So they have to appeal to the person who has 2 votes on the board anyway. That's strange. And considering there are representatives to State and Defence on it, they're kind of appealing to themselves if they want to file an appeal. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's very self-governing. Very, very self-governing. Appeals by the director of NSA and or the representatives of the military departments shall only be filed with the approval of Secretary of Defence, who is 1/2 of the special committee that will hear the appeal anyway. So they can't even appeal without the approval of the person who's then going to hear the appeal, who also has a representative on the board.
That's insane.
This is what somebody called a circle jerk.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
basically exactly what it is.
That's hilarious. Good summary there.
The board where are we? Only with the approval of the Secretary of Defence. If any matter is voted on by the board but no decision is reached and someone files an appeal, or a decision is reached in which the representative of the Secretary of Defence does not concur and files an appeal, no action shall be taken with respect to the subject matter until the appeal is decided, provided that blah, 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 blah. Oh, but if the Secretary of Defence determines after consultation with Secretary of State, so again, here we are, Secretary of State and Secretary of Defence are basically running the show. That if they decide the subject matter presents a problem of an emergency nature and requires immediate action, his decision shall govern. I love that it's his, because they couldn't even conceive of having a female secretary at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was that time, yeah, definitely when that was prevalent.
In such an emergency situation, the appeal may be taken directly to the president. So if you can't work it out amongst all of you, you can come and complain to me. Only if it's of an emergency, in an emergency situation. Recommendations of the board adopted in accordance with the foregoing procedure shall be binding on the Secretary of Defence, which doesn't make much sense when the Secretary of Defence is the one that can stop that process. Except on matters which have been voted on by the board, the Director of NSA shall discharge his responsibilities in accordance with his own judgment. Except on matters which have been voted on by the board, the Director of NSA shall discharge his responsibilities in accordance with his own judgment, subject to the direction of the Secretary of Defence. The Director of NSA shall make, can someone make a note of that, please, in the pirate pad? That line right there. Because that is significant. The Director of NSA shall make such reports and furnish such information from time to time to the board, either orally or in writing, as the board may request, and shall bring to the attention of the board, either in such reports or otherwise, any major policies or programs in advance of their adoption by him. I love this from time to time. It's such a great legal term.
Definitely.
Could be every week, could be every 3 years. It shall also be the duty of the board as to matters not falling within the jurisdiction of NSA to coordinate the communications intelligence activities among all departments and agencies authorized by the President to participate therein, to initiate and formulate policies concerning and subject to the provision of NSCID number 5, to supervise all arrangements with foreign governments in the field of right. This is very significant. It shall also be the duty of the board as to matters not falling within the jurisdiction of the NSA to supervise all arrangements with foreign governments in the field of communications intelligence. This is the partnership agreements right here. This is the construction of the extended enterprise.
Wow.
It shall also be the duty of the board as to matters not falling within the jurisdiction of NSA. So does that mean that making arrangements with foreign governments around communications intelligence was not within the jurisdiction of NSA? That's a question.
I don't know.
And make recommendations concerning policies relating to communications intelligence of common interest to the departments and agencies, including security standards and practices. Hire Microsoft. And for this purpose, to investigate and study the standards and practices of such departments and agencies in utilizing and protecting common information. Any recommendation of the board with respect to the matters described in paragraph E above shall be binding on all departments or agencies of the government if it is adopted by the unanimous vote of the members of the board. Recommendations approved by the majority but not all of the members of the board shall be transmitted by it to the special committees for such actions as the special committee may see fit. The board will meet monthly or oftener at the call of the chairman or any member and shall determine its own procedures. To the Secretary of Defence, this directive shall include the following provisions. Subject to the specific provisions of this directive, the Secretary of Defence may delegate in whole or in part authority over the Director of NSA within his department as he sees fit. What the fuck? So, going back to this foreign partnership thing, the duty of the board to supervise all arrangements with foreign governments in the field of communications intelligence. But the Secretary of Defence, who ultimately holds the key to the whole show, because he's the one who can block any appeal and he's the chairman of the board, can delegate in whole or in part authority over the director of NSA within his department as he sees fit.
Wow, that's incredible.
The common mission of the NSA shall be to provide an effective, unified organization and control of the communications intelligence activities of the United States conducted against foreign governments, to provide for integrated operational policies and procedures pertaining thereto. As used in this directive, the terms communications intelligence or comment shall be construed to mean all procedures and methods, blah, 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 other than foreign press and propaganda broadcasts, and the obtaining of information from such communications by other than intended recipients, but shall exclude censorship and the production and dissemination of finished intelligence. This needs much closer reading, because what this sounds like is that the NSA is not allowed to be in charge of the classification levels of documents. The mission of the NSA to provide effective unified organization and control of communications intelligence activities against foreign governments. So they're very clear that the mission is to be targeted at foreign governments rather than at for economic gain for all the other things that we've been. This is supposed to be like basically espionage and counterintelligence.
Yeah.
To provide for integrated operational policies and procedures pertaining thereto. The comment shall be construed to mean all procedures and methods used in the intercept of communications other than foreign press and propaganda broadcasts, and the obtaining of information from such communications by other than intended recipients, but shall exclude censorship and the production and dissemination of finished intelligence. Excluding censorship, that is censorship in the sense of the classification levels of the intelligence. That's how I read that.
Yeah.
I read that as the NSA does not have jurisdiction over the classification levels, which means they can't decide who the intelligence goes to, which is what this dissemination of finished intelligence is about.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it must be another government agency that's responsible for determining those classification levels. This is significant to the document that we found where the ex-NSA, the Congressional Liaison Office guy, is saying, no, we can't let them change our classification practices. We have to do it ourselves. If that's the case, and if this document is still binding, which it might not be, this document in 1952 may not still be binding. There may have been an updated version post-Church Committee or something else. But if not, if this is still binding, then in theory, I would think that this makes it actually illegal for the NSA to want to set their own terms for classification. So I would make a note of that because there needs some more investigation into that wording, that point 2, but shall exclude censorship and the production and dissemination of finished intelligence. NSA shall be administered by a director designated by the Secretary of Defence after consulting with Joint Chiefs of Staff, who shall serve for a minimum term of 4 years, and who shall be eligible for reappointment. How many times can they? I don't think they, it seems to me 8 is about the max I think that they serve, but I wonder if anyone's ever served for longer than that. The director shall be a CCO of the armed services on active or reactivated status and shall enjoy at least 3-star rank during the period of his incumbency. So basically it needs to be a general.
Yeah.
Is what they're saying.
I'm going to run for like 2 seconds because I'm doing what sometimes has happened to Suzie, which is that I'm running out of battery and I don't have my charger right here.
Go for it.
I'll be right back.
We've got another 20 minutes reading through this, I'm sure, at least.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll be right back.
Under the Secretary of Defence and in accordance with approved policies of USCIB, the board, the Director of NSA should be responsible for accomplishing the mission of the NSA. For this purpose, all collection and production resources of the US are placed under his operational and technical control. When action by the chiefs of the operating agencies of the services or civilian departments or agencies is required, the Director shall normally issue instruction pertaining to common operations through them. However, due to the unique technical character of these operations, the Director is authorized to issue directly to any operating elements under his operational control task, assignments and pertinent instructions, which are within the capacity of such elements to accomplish, so they can basically subcontract stuff to other agencies. He shall also have direct access to and direct communication with any elements of the service or civilian common agencies on any other matters of operational and technical control as may be necessary, and he is authorized to obtain such information and intelligence material from them as he may require. All instruction issued by the Director under the authority provided in this paragraph shall be mandatory, subject only to appeal to the Secretary of Defence by the Chief of Service or Head of Civilian Department of the agency concerned. Specific responsibilities of the Director of NSA include the following: formulating necessary operational plans and policies for the conduct of US comment activities. So operational policies and plans do come from the Director of the NSA. Conducting common activities, including research and development, is required to meet the needs of the departments and agencies authorized to receive the products from the NSA. Determining and submitting to appropriate authorities requirements for logistic support for the conduct of common activities, together with specific recommendation as to what each of the responsible departments and agencies of the government should supply. Within, which is all the acquisition stuff, within NSA's field of authorized operations, prescribing requisite security regulations covering operating practices, including the transmission, handling, and distribution of common material within and among the common elements under his operations or technical control. Requisite security regulations covering operating practices, including transmission and handling and distribution, and exercising the necessary monitoring and supervisory control, including inspections if necessary to ensure compliance with the regulations, subject to the authorities granted the Director of Central Intelligence under NSCID number 5, is conducting all liaison on common matters with foreign governmental intelligence. Subject to authorities granted to the Director of Central Intelligence. Conducting all liaison on common matters with foreign governmental communications and intelligence agencies. So they are the liaison, but the Board and Secretary of Defence oversees the foreign partnerships. To the extent it deems feasible and in consonance with the aims of maximum overall efficiency, economy, and effectiveness, the director shall centralise or consolidate the performance of common functions for which he is responsible. It is recognised that in certain circumstances, elements of the armed forces and other agencies being served, pardon me, will require close common support. When necessary for this close support, direct operational control of specified common facilities and resources will be delegated by the director during such periods and for such tasks as are determined by him to military commanders or to the chiefs of other agencies supported. The director shall exercise such administrative control over common activities as he deems necessary. And this reads like it was written by them.
Yeah, it really does.
It reads like it was written by the director of the head of DOD, the head of CIA, and the head of NSA. And it says Harry S. Truman at the bottom of it. And Truman was the president that dropped the nukes on Japan. Was he not?
He was indeed.
So they've just come out of World War II. They've dropped nuclear bombs on foreign nations. And here is Truman writing a document which gives carte blanche for a circle jerk between the heads of the agencies to report to themselves, to designate their tasks to each other, to designate operational control to each other, to appeal to each other, to prevent appeals, and to set their own policies. That part up there where the NSA director actually writes the NSA policy, what the hell? Did you read that part?
Yeah. I'm having some issues with my audio.
The director shall make provision for participation by representatives of each of the departments and agencies eligible to receive comment products in those offices of NSA where priorities of intercept and processing are finally planned. So this seems to be why they have CIA staff at NSA and NSA staff at CIA. So the key military customers of NSA have staff at NSA, and I would assume that this is why. Make provision for participation by representatives of each of the departments and agencies eligible to receive intelligence in those of NSA where the processing plan. So this is further context for what we've seen in the document. The director shall have a civilian deputy whose primary responsibility shall be to ensure the mobilization and effective employment of the best available human and scientific resources in the field of cryptographic research and development. Nothing in this directive shall contravene the responsibilities of the individual departments and agencies for the final evaluation of common information, its synthesis with information from other sources, and the dissemination of finished intelligence to users. The special nature of common activities requires that they should, there's so many spelling errors in this document, that they be treated in all respects as being outside the framework of other or general intelligence activities, order, directives, policies, or recommendations of any authority of the executive branch relating to collection, production, security, handling, dissemination, or utilization of intelligence and or classified material shall not be applicable to common activities. So that's a waiver, that's a presidential waiver, unless specifically so stated and issued by competent departmental of agency authority, yet again another grammatical error, represented on the board. Other National Security Council intelligence directives to the Director of Central Intelligence and related implementing directives issued by the Director of Central Intelligence shall be construed as non-applicable to common activities unless the National Security Council has made its directive specifically applicable to comment. National Security Council directives to the director of the CIA do not apply to comment unless the National Security Council specifically states so. This presidential waiver is very significant. That needs to be added to our notes, definitely. Order, directives, policies, or recommendations of any authority of the executive branch. Who's in the executive branch aside from the president? Can some American who knows way more than me about the US government please tell me what else is in the executive branch?
I'm probably no better at that than you are. I was having really weird playback issues a minute ago, and then I'm having it again now. And your voice went weird for a minute. I'm not sure what it is. It can't be me, because when that happened, I was completely muted everywhere. So anyway, I don't know what's going on, but chat was interested in what happened.
Law enforcement and the military is in the executive branch.
Is the and I have about as much background in the legal system of the US as you do. I wasn't educated initially in the US, but I'm asking this to chat. Is the Department of Justice not part of the executive branch? Am I completely...
Guys, as for robot voice, I have absolutely no idea why YouTube has decided to warp my voice. Perhaps YouTube is not a big fan of us reading Truman's directive for the establishment of the responsibilities and policy making of the NSA live on YouTube.
Yeah, because now it's fine. At least on my end, it's all fine. But it was really weird for a minute there. It sounded like some weird movie effect. It was odd. So
I think they're fans.
Definitely.
This is extremely significant. I'm kind of wishing we had known to do this right at the beginning, but it's still contextualizing our other findings. So I'm being told it is the president and the vice president, the speaker of the House, the law enforcement and the military.
And the Department of Justice. It's the Department of Justice is the executive branch department responsible for handling legal work of the federal government. I just looked that up. So.
And so the DOJ is in there as well.
Yeah.
So none of those entities orders, directives, policies, or recommendations of any authority of the executive branch relating to collection, production, security, handling, dissemination, or utilization of intelligence or classified material are non-applicable to the NSA. But then the NSA is there, the definition of that did not include censorship and where was it? Censorship. It excludes censorship in the production and dissemination of the finished intelligence. So the NSA can't decide where the finished intelligence goes.
Yeah.
And it presumably can't just decide the classification levels either. So that gives the NSA autonomy from those other agencies in the executive branch, including even the presidential part is a bit strange. I mean, how many presidents actually write waivers like that?
I don't know.
The president is actually giving it away, part of his oversight. That's my reading of it.
Yeah, no, that's what it sounds like. Maybe somebody in chat has a different interpretation. And thank you, Red in Economics. I really enjoyed that interview with Graham. I saw that they mentioned in chat. But that was a really, really fun interview. That's actually one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done. Way up there.
So basically, unless it's an emergency situation, the president is completely hands off the NSA.
Yeah.
The emergency situation, I've just searched the document on the word president. The emergency situation is the only part where the president is retaining any kind of authority. For anything else, it's basically hands off.
Yeah. And so that really gives you this picture of the NSA as having this sort of almost what seems like virtually unlimited power, it seems like. Is that right from what you're seeing?
I want to go back to the formulation of policies. What it seems like is that the specific responsibilities of the director of NSA include the following: formulating necessary operational plans and policies for the conduct of US common activities. It's pretty plain. The director of the NSA can set the policies for the conduct of the NSA. That seems to me like nuts.
Yeah, but see, that goes to what we were saying earlier. So when we say that the NSA is allowed to set the conduct for the NSA, like that's not because of this randomness. That isn't illegal as far as how they were set up, but it should be. It absolutely should.
But Zena, it's really dangerous and bad because the document that we found where they had discovered that they were doing things that they didn't have directives from the director of the NSA to do, their response to that was to write new directives for what they were already doing. Yeah. So they're like retroactively authorizing themselves to do what they're already doing.
Yeah, definitely. And so it raises this whole issue of the fact that Americans didn't have any say in the creation of the NSA or the rules that governed the NSA, and it's just a complete pile of, you know, steaming whatever from the get-go. You know, it's really, really mind-bogglingly, it like should be illegal, but it's, you know, set up in a way that is absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, should be illegal. Even if it, you know, the way it's worded, it isn't. But
it is completely nonsensical.
I guess, and
they're self-governing.
It's unethical. That's the word I'm looking for. It's immoral, but specifically unethical that they're set up this way. But because I think also, like, people a lot of times think that if it's against the law or if it is legal, then it must also be good. Sometimes lots of good things like feeding homeless people can be against the law, and things that are really evil like the NSA can be legal. It's not, you know, legal and good aren't the same thing. So
allowing them to establish their own policies and procedures is self-governing.
Yeah.
And no intelligence agency should be self-governing.
Agreed.
Or 100%. What you have is that they decide that they should run the world, which is exactly what we have.
Yeah, it really is.
So all of this shit that the NSA has been doing, they literally can cook up themselves. Their global network, their extended enterprise, their blah, 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 blah. Their mission to control the entire planet is self-perpetuated.
Yeah.
And self-governing. So here's what I want to do now. Now I want to know, what is the mission of the establishment of the Congressional Intelligence Oversight Committee and the Senate Intelligence Oversight Committee. I'd also like to know what the terms of reference were for the establishment of the 9/11 Commission, since the 9/11 Commission was specifically referenced in that by that NSA staff member when he was saying that they had to at all costs avoid there being any change to how they operated based on oversight from those groups. I think we need to understand more about what the oversight commitments of the NSA are.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
So that we can make better sense of what we've already read today. The other thing that I want to know is if any policy came out of the Church Committee in the 70s that impacted upon NSA. if there is any updated document post this 1952 directive from Harry Truman. And I think that we should do all of those things before we continue going through the files.
Yeah.
Batch 5 is the last public batch of Snowden documents. I personally suspect that within a couple of months, or maybe even February, Intercept will probably release batch 6. But this stuff is critically important. This is so important to understand, because it contextualizes everything that's been going on. The whole issue of mass surveillance, where did it come from? When did they decide that they should be able to do these things? Why have they been able to so easily create legislation and push it through to cover for these things? And this, I think, is a big piece of that puzzle, which is that they are developing their own policies and procedures. And if the Department of Justice can't dictate to the NSA relating to comment, then it's possible that it's the NSA that is dictating to them about comment.
Yeah.
And to law enforcement about comment. So I think there's a lot more going on here to uncover as to how they got to be doing the things that they were doing that led Snowden to blow the whistle.
Definitely.
So I think we should keep it short for today, just as an intro to batch 5. And we should just try and rest up for a couple of days. I will make it a priority to complete my reporting on batch 4, because I have all my notes sitting here ready to go. I'll write that up in the next 3 days. Please, can I have somebody send me before Friday for you guys, information on any directives that were issued to the NSA since the 1952 Truman document that we just looked at.
I don't know what I'll find, but I'll look.
Terms of reference for 9/11 Commission and the directives for the establishment of the Congressional and Senate Intelligence Oversight Committees. We need to review all of those things so that we can understand what, if any, oversight does really exist. I would point out that in New Zealand, we have a ridiculous farce of an Intelligence Oversight Committee. It's comprised of the acting Prime Minister plus 2 people that they appoint, plus 2 other leaders of parties. One of those was the Green Party in New Zealand. Russell Norman, his name was, the old ex-MP for the ex-co-leader of the Green Party in New Zealand, sat on that committee. So there was always 2 dissenting votes, and then the Prime Minister plus 2 affirming votes, which meant that the Prime Minister had the majority no matter what. So it was a giant scam, basically. Which is what I suspect, that this is a bit of a scam, giving the Secretary of State and DOD, Central Intelligence, 2 votes each. It sounds suspiciously to me like that they can almost force through anything that they want, no matter what the others.
It makes sense if that's what they were doing.
Because it's a similar model in New Zealand with the Oversight Board. But Russell Norman, who sat there and got briefed by New Zealand spies every single week in that Intelligence Oversight Committee, he said that he learned more about what New Zealand spies were doing from the Snowden NZ releases than he ever learned sitting on the Special Classified Intelligence Oversight Board alongside the Prime Minister.
That's incredible. And it's sad to think that our, not just members of Congress and that type of elected leadership, but I mean, the people that are running the whole show don't know what's going on. It's mind-boggling.
He learned more from reading leaked documents than from reading top secret documents supplied to him by the heads of the intelligence agencies.
Yeah, because as we've seen, they curate those the documents that these people see very, very heavily. So that's why.
They have an entire office that does nothing but sit there and vet every single thing that might go to the oversight boards, just to make damn sure that there's never going to be any issue arising. That's not oversight, that's propaganda.
True. Very
okay,
true.
On that note, it looks like civilian oversight is all we're going to have. So
We will continue on with that
We will
project.
continue on that mission. We will definitely continue on that mission. So please, guys, if you could do that research and send me those documents, that would be great. And then we'll work our way through them in the next episode. I want to get to the bottom of this, to finding out what oversight actually exists before we keep going through the rest of the documents, so that at the end of this, we can actually start talking about what kind of oversight should be in place.
True.
That's ultimately where this heads, as to what are the solutions. But first, we need to understand how things have got to where they are now. Okay, any questions, you guys? I'll just open up chat.
Chat, you're all awesome. Thank you for joining us. I know we had a bit of a late start, but I'm really, really thankful that you're here and contributing in the way that you are. So.
Thank you guys for sending all these tweets and stuff. I'm just going through all the notifications. That's totally cool. Someone said that we went live during State of the Union and that it will impact, they suggested it will impact our viewer numbers.
Oh, we're fine.
Because our entire crew is here and not watching State of the Union.
I don't know that we'll lose the entire audience, but I think we'll do fine.
Very cool. Okay, where are we? Okay, no questions. We're just being told to get some sleep and look after ourselves. I will try.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for caring, and thank you for reading through this stuff with us. Thank you for being geeky like me and finding this interesting and this bureaucratic stuff interesting rather than just boring. I think that was a great find, that Truman document.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And I know more than I did at the beginning of this episode just from having read through that with you guys. So that's really, really cool. So next time we will go through the oversight documents and then we'll keep going through the batch. So thanks so much, guys. Big love from me, and we will catch you later.
Bye, everyone.